Well, next on BBC News, Lisa Summers meets parents who are struggling to cope with children whose behaviour is extremely challenging. Well, as the number of young people who are diagnosed with autism rockets, more and more families are incredibly desperate for help.
Behind any door, in any street, you might find one of the thousands of families in Scotland struggling with autism. I've been speaking to families across the country whose day-to-day lives are so much harder than you can begin to imagine.
I'm talking when he was 8 or 9 and I'm taking a kicking. That's what's happening. I'm curled up in a ball.
All I knew was my baby was at the front and the minister was passing it into God's hands, I suppose.
I meet the parents begging for help from a system they feel doesn't understand them or their children.
Right now, though, I've no parental control over Jack. None.
Young people speak up for themselves.
Every now and then they'd come over and open the top of the door and look in at me, close it and leave again. Then it was terrifying, because I was 5 and locked in a room by myself.
I don't blame them for seeing me as a bad kid, but I know I'm not a bad kid, but it's just I know that they don't understand it.
That's very charitable of you.
Yeah, I'm trying to be very patient.
And those inside the system revealed the reality of mental health services.
Do you have the resources that you need to do the job properly?
No, I don't think that we do.
Tonight, families all around us are asking, help me save my child. I'm starting in a quiet village in the Stirlingshire countryside. I'm here to meet a family that have been through the toughest of times. This is Tina and Jacob. He's 15. Jacob's problems started in primary 1.
He was lashing out, he'd hide, squeak, just be totally overwhelmed, so it was funny noises and hiding for the teacher.
Because I saw all the other people in my class and they were all working and I couldn't. And then I'd get upset over that, and then I'd get angry that I got upset and lash out.
So then they started putting him in the chill-out room, which was a cupboard with
It's a staff toilet now.
It's a staff.
And that they called it the
They called it the chill-out room, and they used to close the door and lock it.
Yeah.
It sounds hard to believe that a 5-year-old would be shut in a cupboard because of his behaviour. But it wasn't a one-off.
They done that pretty much every day. Every time I acted out in any way, it was straight there.
It doesn't sound like much of a chill-out room.
It really wasn't. It was awful. So it was freezing. And every now and then they'd come over and open the top of the door and look in at me, and close it and leave again. And it was terrifying. Because I was 5 and locked in a room by myself. It was genuinely terrifying.
Over time, Jacob's lashing out became more serious. He started to behave in a way that Tina thought went well beyond anyone's definition of a naughty child.
I'm talking when he was 8 or 9 and it's actually getting to that. I'm taking a kicking. That's what's happening. I'm curled up in a ball. And you have to phone somebody to come and help. I've had the advice to put bedroom locks on his windows and his door and just leave him in there when he does that and just let him burn it out. But he would hurt himself.
Jacob and his mum suspect he's autistic. Despite years of assessments by child and adolescent mental health services, He's never had a definitive diagnosis. He's been medicated off and on for depression, but he's still at a loss.
You start to get a ton of different feelings, and you don't really know why any of it's happening, and you don't know why you can't keep up with the work or control your emotions as well as other people. I just kind of wish I had a rough idea of what was happening, I guess.
Jacob is doing better for now. The family feel that's despite their contact with school and mental health services, not because of it. They feel they haven't had the answers or support they should have.
Expect when something is as bad as that when you go for help, that somebody will be able to help. Point you in the right direction. Spend a bit of time and if it's just some answers, it's no the way it should be.
Jacob and Tina feel that primary school in particular made things worse, not better. We asked Stirling Council about his experiences. They wouldn't address his case directly, but said timeout can be an effective approach for some children, and that new guidance was prepared in 2015 for schools to make sure safe spaces were fit for purpose.
I mean, you talked about a child going into a cupboard. Now, what that child might actually need is 5 minutes to run around the playground and let off steam, and then they can relax again. And, you know, there's something very stigmatising about taking a child from the class and putting them into isolation, a cupboard. And it's often that thing of, you know, is that what you would want for your own child? And if that's the answer is no, then we shouldn't be imposing that on children.
Chloe White has autism. She's a successful young person off to university in the autumn, and she's a member of the Scottish Youth Parliament.
I had come here to interview Chloe to find out what it's like to be autistic from someone who has autism. But in actual fact, I think it'd be better if she just told you herself.
Well, I'm Chloe, and for me, being autistic means that it affects how I see the world. It's not a learning disability, and no two people with autism are alike. The way I like to explain it to other people is if you imagine that your brain is like a computer, so it's designed to help you process what's the information sent to you by your senses. But with an autistic brain, the settings are stuck at a different level. It doesn't mean that the computer's broken in any way, and it's still just as fast as your computer, but for some autistic people, it means they get sent too much information at the same time. So loud noises and bright lights can seem even louder and even brighter to us, which can be really stressful sometimes. It can also affect the way that we communicate with other people, because there's just so much else going on at the same time. That's it.
Newhaven in Edinburgh. I'm here because I have the chance to see just how disruptive and distressing autism can be. I'm about to meet Jack and his mum, Sharon. Now, by all accounts, they're going through a really tough time at the moment. Jack's behaviour's been really unpredictable. He's been getting up and walking out of school. Now, I've no idea what to expect when I meet them, but I'm hoping that they might be able to share with me what it's like to be going through something like this. Sharon is having a bad day. Her 14-year-old son, Jack, ran off last night and was eventually brought home by the police. He's autistic and has ADHD. I had hoped to interview him and Sharon, but he ran off again this morning. And as we're getting ready to talk, the buzzer goes.
Go on. Get the buzzer. Your buzzer. Go and get the buzzer. Yeah.
Hello? That's Jack. No.
Is that him back? Should we go and speak to him? Is he coming up?
I don't know if I'm in.
Jack doesn't come up the stairs, so I go to look for him.
He's not in the back garden either, so basically he's just come home for about 20 seconds and then disappeared again.
Jack and his mum's relationship is at breaking point. She's vulnerable and he's struggling with autism.
Oh, girl.
She's relying on social work to help her.
Yes.
While I'm at the flat, they phone.
I know what he's capable of, and I know that he will just end up pushing me or trash the house up.
Sharon repeatedly asks for direct help, but her social worker responds by asking her what she wants to do about Jack.
I really don't know the best way around this, to be honest. But I mean, right now though, I've no parental control over Jack. None.
Sophie Pilgrim works for a local children's charity called Kindred. Since Jack walked out of school, she's been trying to get the family onto an intensive support scheme for families affected by autism. But she's struggling to get the council to pay for it.
What it is she's doing that's making Jack more stressed, which for another young person might be exactly the right thing, but for Jack, those things might be actually increasing the difficulties that he's facing. So she really needs somebody to come in and observe what she's doing and then help her put autism strategies in place.
We'll return to Sharon and Jack later in the programme. The worry for any parent of an autistic child is that if their problems aren't dealt with, they can develop into depression and other mental illnesses. No one knows that better than Judy Toledo. She's coming back to Brecon Cathedral for the first time since her daughter Libby's memorial service last autumn.
It was so surreal and so awful. It's so difficult. It's the most difficult 30 feet I've ever walked. And I had no idea how many people were here, who was here. All I knew was my baby was at the front. And the minister was passing her into God's hands, I suppose.
Libby lived with autism and ADHD throughout her short life. She was in and out of care. Last September, she ran away from a residential care home. Her mum was getting ready to make an appeal for help in tracing her when everything changed.
We were meant to have a press conference at Kirkcaldy Police Station, and the next thing we know, we were being told that everybody had been sent home and that a body had been found. She had just gone somewhere quietly and taken her own life.
Libby first saw child mental health services at 6 years old. It took almost a decade to get a diagnosis of autism and ADHD. Meanwhile, she developed depression and anxiety, first attempting suicide at 14.
I asked once what her reasons for her first attempt were, and I was absolutely gutted when she turned around and said one of the reasons was she couldn't figure out if she was beyond help or if she just wasn't worthy of getting help. And she knew there was stuff going on that she needed medical help with. And I told her, I said, you are worthy. This speaks volumes about the system, not you.
My hair was in my face. This is not a good look for me, but I really don't care. I'm half dead. I've not slept since Thursday night. I really need to stop doing this to myself. Just like, what should we do today? Go sleep. Yay!
I think so much damage was done not only by the lack of diagnosis, but just all the meetings and appointments where I was just basically told I was a bit of an inept mother and she was just a badly behaved child that needed to get a grip of herself.
Although social work and child mental health services, or CAMS, worked with Libby, Judy believes the underlying cause of her problems, her autism, was never properly dealt with. And that's led to the waste of a young life.
Do you think that if Libby had had the support that she needed, then she would be here today?
I know in my heart of hearts if she'd had the help much younger and the right kind of help and support, I have no doubt she would still be here.
There's an unusually high incidence of anxiety and depression in autistic people, and that's not an inevitability. That's not necessarily part of autism, but it is a vulnerability when you have autism, and when you get a diagnosis and get no support with that, it shouldn't be a surprise that people struggle, but there's no real proactive approach going on as far as I can see.
All of the families I've spoken to so far have talked about the constant battle that they have trying to get the help they need for their children, even within the CAMS system. So I want to find out what it's like on the other side of the fence. What challenges do the clinicians face, and do they understand how frustrating and exhausting it is for these families?
Our struggle is always between wanting to see people for longer and spend more time trying to give them the best possible service, whilst recognising that there's a waiting list of people who are knocking on the door and wanting to be seen also. And somehow we have to try and manage that balance.
Do you have the resources that you need to do the job properly?
No, I don't think that we do. Much of the time when we're looking to try and manage some of the more challenging problems, we don't have the staff who can work together as a team. So we don't have enough resource in order to spend as much time solving a problem in a team-like fashion as we need to.
Back in New Haven, Jack is home, though still not at school. There have been flashpoints, including him trashing the house. It's tense, and Sharon is struggling to keep a good relationship with her son.
So you're going to go to this meeting tomorrow at CAMS?
I don't know.
Well, I think you should go, Jack.
Sophie from children's charity Kindred has come to help get Jack back to school. She wants him to pick just one lesson he'll go back to.
I don't mind chemistry.
So what time is that?
Chemistry, that's LC so that'll be 2:30.
Right, okay, well let's try that tomorrow and we'll see where we go from there, right?
Okay.
Good. Well done, Jack. You've got to promise me you will not speak to him about school at all. Not a word. No. You'll not see his uniform, nothing. Alright, promise me. No, I'll solemn promise. Pinky promise. Alright.
The next day, Sophie is heading to pick up Jack. Her charity wouldn't normally do this, but since Jack and Sharon's conflict over going to school, it seems she's the only one who can get him there.
So the point of that is just to try and give him one manageable small thing that he hopefully can achieve today. But if he can do this, it's a big breakthrough because it's him crossing the threshold back into school. Hiya, how are you? You alright? Do you want to jump in the front?
Jack seems ready to make that effort after 3 weeks of refusing to go to school.
I thought I'd just let you get on with it once we're in class.
But after just 5 minutes, he's out. He decided he wanted to go to a special area for children with additional needs rather than chemistry. But the school wasn't prepared for that, so he's heading home. In Fife, there's a place that holds out hope for the children we've been seeing. Falkland House School does look like Hogwarts, and there is a kind of magic here. Meet Lucas. He's getting good results and aiming to get a job when he leaves Falkland House in the summer. It's a far cry from when he came to this special school 5 years ago, after spending 2 years excluded from mainstream education.
We had a massive battle trying to get the right support at school for Lucas. Even after his diagnosis, it was still difficult. And personally, I think people still didn't really believe it and just thought a lot of the time he was still just a badly behaved little boy, which was really sad. Good girl.
Alice saw massive changes in her son as he went through primary school. As his autism went largely untreated, he developed obsessive behaviours that took over his life.
It's just heartbreaking for us because he was begging for us to allow him to do these things. Like, go down and open the front door, Mum, I need to touch the wall. At the same time, I'm thinking, well, by doing that, I'm encouraging it, but if I didn't let him do it, he would get in such a state, you know, it would go like in a sort of panic attack, so he'd be shaking and sweating. It was really difficult to see him like this.
5 years ago, Lucas came here to Falkland House after his mum took the council to a tribunal to get him a place. I wanted to know how things had changed since he came here.
Before, it kind of just got out of hand at some points where I'd just been non-stop, like, repeating something over and over until I got it right. But now, I feel like I've probably gotten past that, even though some signs still show.
Can you describe how different your life is now to what it was like, say, 5 years ago before you came here?
It's just a lot different. Like, I used to be, very annoying before I came here, so I would pick up on people's grammar, even though I do still sometimes do that. But I do it, a lot more often, and I'd just, be a real pain to be around.
That's a hard thing to say about yourself.
I know, but it's what happened.
And at the time, did you know that you were difficult to be around, but you couldn't help yourself?
Well, I probably knew it, but I just didn't want to stop because it annoyed me if people got grammar wrong and stuff.
And now, how would you consider yourself?
A lot less annoying, but still can be annoying, because I know I can be, but I do it for fun.
Lucas has been on quite a remarkable journey this time he's spent with us at Falkland House School. He obviously had very difficult school experiences in the mainstream setting, but also you have to look at that through the lens of an understanding of the autism and be able to separate what are the bits that essentially are Lucas and we can't change, and what are the bits that he needs a little bit of support in order to understand how he can then behave in ways that people find more acceptable, and it helps him manage in different social settings. And it's having the time to get to know the child, understand in what ways we can help Lucas manage his behaviours, but at the same time allow Lucas to celebrate and just enjoy being Lucas.
So C is 2 pi r, or...
The frustration is that there's spare capacity here, but parents struggle to get local authorities to pay for a place.
It is expensive to send a child to this school, you can't deny that. It's labour intensive and there are only a small number of children that come here. But it's not just about the money, it's about what they do. They take the time to see every child as an individual and work out what helps them flourish. And it works.
Back in Edinburgh, I'm finally hoping to meet up with Jack myself. He's here. It's 2 weeks since Sophie took him to school, and he's only managed to go back for a single lesson. But his mum has been doing her homework, trying to understand her son better.
When he's calm like that, he's such a fantastic kid, The more I learn, then the better I can deal with my son, because, it all helps.
Yeah, it does. Anyway, all right, take care.
Right,
yeah. Always like a wee hug.
I can see Sharon is making progress. She's hoping to start the intensive course Sophie wanted for the family next month. But that's 4 months after Jack walked out of school.
We're happy to chat to you in your room, Jack, if you want to still be on your Xbox.
In the meantime, he's beginning to understand his behaviour better.
The thing with autism is you're stuck with it. You can't, it's not like ADHD or anything like that. You can't grow out of it. But yeah, you just have to adapt to it.
How do you feel that a lot of people just see you as a bad kid?
See, I don't blame them for seeing me as a bad kid, but I know I'm not a bad kid, but it's just, I know that they don't understand it. If they understood it, then yeah, I'd be pretty angry, but you can't be angry at someone who doesn't understand it. Do you know what I mean? So.
That's very charitable of you.
Yeah, I'm trying to be very patient.
All right, take care.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
What I've learned from Jack and the other young people I've met making this programme is that we all need to stop expecting autistic kids to fit into our way of doing things. And we need to make extra efforts to understand how the world works for them.
Just because you feel that a person should be able to cope with something like walking through a shopping centre or going to a party doesn't mean that they can. You should always communicate with people and ask what they're comfortable with and be a bit more accepting and understanding of those around you.